Good afternoon, guys. Thanks for the introduction. So, as just said, my background is in e-commerce. I started many years ago at Groupon, then a very fast-growing e-commerce company from the US. I'm originally from the Netherlands and joined them in Amsterdam, and was asked in 2012 to come to South Africa and help set it up here, which I gladly did, and have been here now for the last 8 years. And I think it's the attraction of e-commerce growth and the opportunities that South Africa and the African continent have to offer that attracted me. But it's also learned me a lot. E-commerce in South Africa is not the same as e-commerce in the rest of the world. It's not the same as in the US or as in Europe. I think that by now most e-commerce companies and people in the e-commerce scene know that, and they have adjusted to that. But when I arrived here 8 years ago, I could see, it was still very much, me included, people thinking to just copy what's happening overseas and hoping that it will work here. But that's not going to happen. So what I'm going to talk about today a little bit is the challenges of e-commerce, and especially the accessibility. Graham actually already touched on it a little bit, saying South Africa is a very big country, and how do you ensure that you can still deliver to your consumers, although they are scattered around the country? And some tricks around that. So I thought maybe to start with this slide. I'm sure you guys might have seen this already floating around social media, but I think obviously this session is not being planned this week, not for nothing. I think the current crisis is going to speed up digital transformation, is going to speed up e-commerce tremendously. We're already seeing a lot of movement around that in the space. As an example, just a few. I read that Pick and Pay and ShopRite this week have launched, last week have launched, mobile payments through SnapScan and Zapper. Something that I've been wondering why they did not do that 10 years ago or 5 years ago. Woolies just opened up some drive-through pickup points. Uber Eats is now going to probably move into the logistics space and start doing delivery of parcels. So you can see that obviously a crisis like this is going to make a lot of change, and I assume that a lot of you guys are also on the call because of that, because it's a moment of obviously a lot of uncertainty, and unfortunately for some people also a risk to their health, but it's also a moment of opportunity. And I think that's why we're all together today. Why did I come here originally, right? E-commerce is growing. I think South Africa and Africa as a continent, but South Africa specifically, the opportunity is big. More and more people are going online. More and more people have access to internet. The middle class is growing. Middle class being people that have disposable income. South Africa specifically is a good country because it has a very high banking and card penetration. I think 77 to 75% of the population does have a bank account and has a card. So there's a huge opportunity for e-commerce, and put on that the current crisis, and I think that opportunity is only just going to be sped up. So what's the challenge? Delivery. So the whole thing we're here today about is delivery. I think delivery is probably the biggest challenge for e-commerce growth on the continent and in the country. And there's a few reasons for that. First reason is access. The country is very big, and there's a lot of areas in this country that don't have street addresses like townships. Small rural towns could be 700 or 800 kilometers away from Johannesburg. So you have or Cape Town, you have your e-commerce site, you start it up, you've done everything right, and then you get an order from somebody 800 kilometers away. And that's not cheap to get the parcel there. And then on top of that, I think historically, other countries will have a post office that might be working well. That's not the case in South Africa, right? So those issues, those challenges, really make e-commerce a bit more difficult. And I think what's important to highlight is e-commerce is not just, kind of a simple or an easy way for somebody to make some extra bucks on the side. I know a lot of people look at it that way, but if you want to start a proper e-commerce company, if you want to do what Takeoff is doing, that requires a lot of money and a lot of time and a lot of know-how. I'm sure everybody knows, but I mean, the amount of investment that's been going into Takeoff has been immense, and they're still not profitable. They have 2,000 people walking around there. They've bought their own complete logistics company to solve their problems around the delivery. And again, it's challenging, but I think there are solutions around it, right? So what are those solutions? I think the number one reason, or the biggest thing you should do, is add optionality and add options to what you're doing. So what I mean by that is you need to give your customers the option of different services, different speeds, and different pricing. It's difficult to do that, and not a lot of companies in South Africa are doing that yet, but it makes the biggest difference. So what does that mean? It means give them the option to get a delivery to their home, but also give them an option to, for instance, use a pickup point. Our company Pargo has become very big in building a network of parcel pickup points. We partner up with stores throughout the country like Clicks and Caltex, and allow people to send parcels there. What this means is that if you then have a customer that lives in an area that is more challenging to service, that you can still service them. So a few examples: somebody who lives in a small town or a township might not have access, might not have a proper street address. What do they fill in? I've literally, when I arrived and I started working at Groupon, we would have at least 2-3 times a week, and I'm sure that Graham sees it at Ram as well, a label where it would say drop off at the house, the third street after the big tree, go left, and then past the church, and I'm in that house, right? That was the way they were trying to explain where they lived, because they didn't have a proper street address. They couldn't just put in a number and a street. So trying to solve that problem could be a pickup point, for instance. But maybe somebody that lives in Sandton, maybe they don't want a pickup point. Maybe they want a delivery within 3 hours. So offer them different speeds, offer them the option to get a quicker delivery. Adjust your pricing based on those options, on those services. A delivery to a pickup point can be much cheaper because you consolidate and you get many parcels going to the same place. So a delivery to a pickup point could be anywhere 20 to 30% cheaper than a delivery to somebody's house. And then if you're doing somebody's house delivery, maybe add to that the option to, as I said, to do it the same day and just charge them an extra 50 grand. And what you'll see is if you add them all, if you give them all the extra options, that customers will choose, and the customer will obviously go for the option that makes more sense to them. So I think it's about options. On the one hand, it's for the customers, but it's also for you guys, for the retailers, for the senders. So the typical way of running your e-commerce company would be to, depending if you're going to be a pure e-commerce player. So when I say pure e-commerce player, you only have your website and you have some stock somewhere in a warehouse, or do you also have a store? If you have a store, then you have to make the option: are you going to put your e-commerce stock in a warehouse, or are you going to fulfill your parcels from your store, or are you going to do both? And again, as a company, what we're trying to do is give the customer, in this case the business, the options to make that, to do both. To say, okay, if I have the stock in my store, I'll rather fulfill it from my store, then I don't have to pay that warehousing option. And if I have the stock in the warehouse, I'll do it from the warehouse. But maybe you have 25 stores across the country, and then you would like to get and then you combine these things. So then you get the option to fulfill it from the store, to get the customer to collect from the store, and all of a sudden you've sold online, but you don't have the delivery fee. So all this together, I think, is what you need to strive for. And by putting as many options, creating as many options as possible for yourself and for your consumer, you make it easier. And by doing that, you also mitigate the cost, which is, again, quite expensive, but you're giving the customer the option to choose which ones they want. What does this mean if you have all these options? It means that you're actually moving towards a true omnichannel experience, whereby those 3 things that we stand for: accessibility, convenience, and reliability, all kind of thrive and come together. And I think it's also important to highlight that a modern e-commerce experience these days is not just online. So if you look at this little shopper's journey that I've put together here, you'll see, you know, like typically what will happen is that somebody's on their phone and sees an advertisement for a pair of jeans in this case. They browse online on their phone, they go and buy online for they buy that pair of jeans, and they choose for a click and collect service. They then walk into the store to buy their jeans, but while they're to collect their jeans, and while they're collecting the jeans, they actually see a t-shirt that they like. But the t-shirt is not there in their size, but they still want it, so they pay for the t-shirt, and they ask the staff at the store to arrange a home delivery. They go home, and you know, the next day they have their shirt. So it's a great example of how Omnichannel, both from an ordering channel perspective, so online, you know, mobile phone, laptop, store, as from a delivery perspective, collecting from a store, and a home delivery, all comes together, and helps you to create that modern day shopper's experience. How does this look like? This is basically, you know, the most complicated version, but on the top, the light blue ones would be you. You know, you'll have your different commerce channels, your e-commerce, your stores, you have marketing channels, you might have a marketplace, or maybe you have your e-commerce channel in your store. The marketplace might be something like Take-A-Lot or Bid or Buy, where you're selling on. You have your direct sales channels. There's all these channels that come together. You have your backend where all your platforms come, your e-commerce platform. You might have a WMS, ERP, all these things linked together. And then what Pargo does, our company, is links this all together in a platform where we give you guys all the support you need, API support, communication with the customers, supply chain management, all this stuff comes together and then trickles into different services. So again, it's about optionality. On the top, you see the different options of where you're selling from, and on the bottom, you see the different options of how you're distributing it to your consumer. And again, that comes back to making it different speed options and different cost options. So you could, you know, what you're going to find, and we see this all the time, is that mass products that have to go to maybe a more difficult area like a township, you then do for cheap. You deliver 10 or 20 at a time to one pickup point in the township where people can collect, but a high-end good that has to go to a high-end area goes for a higher price. Cool. That's let me stop sharing. There you go. That's it. I hope that was useful, and I don't know if there's any questions that I still answer.
So thanks so much, Lars. There is a question here that I don't think you've seen. What happens with the RICA documents that you get, as this is in a day of agent fraud? How safe are they?
So we, as a company, don't do RICA. I think that's for Ram, probably for Graham, the question. We work with, so I think that's just important to say, as a company, Pargo, we're not a courier company ourselves. We are a platform. We partner up with the different couriers in the country. So RICA documentation and that would be with the courier companies. They will ensure that the documentation stays safe, that that they obviously comply to POPI Acts and to the RICA and FICA Act. So making sure that that information and data stays safe.